Welcome back to Bluebird Forest Garden. You can find us online at village4health.org. That's village4health.org. And you may also want to look up our bluegrass music channel on YouTube. Search for Bluebird Mountain Music on YouTube. So in this video, I'm going to demonstrate how to sustainably and safely harvest wood for heat and how to use it in a way that does not create smoke and air pollution problems, and to try to do the whole thing safely. So I've made a start on a dead tree here. This is a grand fir, also known as white fir. The first thing I do when I come to a tree is decide which way to fell it. You look at which way it's leaning. You look at how many branches there may be on one side or what you don't want to hit when the tree falls. And you can use your axe. Grab it with 2 fingers. Let it balance, hang straight. You can tell that this tree is leaning to the east, so I'm going to fell it that way. There's nothing over there except a stack of firewood for it to hit. The next thing I do is I go around and I chip off all the bark around at the height that I'm going to cut it. That way your saw doesn't get dull cutting through all that bark. Then I take my bow saw for smaller trees or a crosscut saw for big trees. This is the bow saw. You start a cut on the side that you want it to fall toward. And then as I get that cut deeper, I take the axe and I chop at it and clear out that cut, making a pie-shaped void in the tree, and that's where it's going to fall to. It'll fall into that void. And the direction, the angle of that wedge that you cut out of the tree determines which way it's going to fall. That, along with the weight of branches or wind. So when you're going out into the woods, especially working with hand tools, be sure to check in with how strong and competent you're feeling, how well rested you are. Check in with the weather forecast. I once tackled a tree that was almost 2 feet diameter, and my crosscut saw almost got stuck in the cut. It wanted to bind up and not move. But I muscled through it and I got that tree down, and within a couple hours there was a big windstorm came up that would have knocked that tree onto our little house. So I should have called the weather service that day and made sure of the weather. So now I'm going to finish up this cut and hopefully show you a tree falling. Now I've gotten pretty much to where my 2 cuts are starting to meet in the middle. Just a little strip of wood there holding things together. I'll move around to this side, cut some more. Now this tree I probably wouldn't need to use wedges on, but I'm going to demonstrate. It has a good lean the way I want it to fall, but wedges also sometimes just help open up that cut. So out of my pocket I'm going to pull a plastic felling wedge. I also made my own splitting wedge out of serviceberry, which is the same hardwood that I made my own axe handle out of. So, you insert the wedge into your cut. This is the opposite side from where the tree is going to fall. Little sledgehammer. There we go. Now it's started. Ooh, it's going. And it's down. That's called felling a tree the old-fashioned way. I hear some guys say that, oh, we're so independent and sustainable, we heat with wood. But they're using chainsaws. And I wonder if they're really producing their own chainsaw oil and their own chainsaw gas. I don't use a chainsaw. Chainsaws use gas and they burn oil with every stroke of the engine. That's why they make that nasty blue smoke. They also smear oil with every revolution of the chain around the bar. Now, there's the stump. You can see that tongue of wood that broke. That was what was holding it on until I put the wedge in. Now, I'm sure that it's better to use a chainsaw and cut wood rather than using heating oil or something completely petroleum, but it's amazing the amount of wood you can make if you put a half an hour a day with the bow saw into making firewood. It keeps our two little houses warm. Now I'm going to show you how I go through the woods and pick out deciduous or hardwood that is dead and needs to be cut down and harvested. Here's a piece of cherry that's been knocked down by the snow. I'll make a cut in it. See how all the sawdust there is brown? That means it's dead. On a piece of live wood, you make a little cut and you come up with green and yellow. That's alive, so we'll leave it. Okay, now I'm going to take you down to the house real quick and show you a fire burning with no smoke. Well, first I'm going to show you how I measure and cut the logs to be used for firewood. I don't bother with a tape measure out in the woods. I just use my span, which is 8 inches. So 12 spans is 8 feet because there's 12 inches in a foot. Puzzle that one. So when I cut the tree into 8-foot lengths, I knock the branches off like this. And sometimes I use the axe too for the bigger branches. And then here you can see 8-foot lengths of firewood covered with sheet metal, which keeps it pretty dry. Then those 8-foot lengths get drug down to the little house, and I'll show you what happens there next. So now here we are at the little house ready to take a peek at a fire burning. See the chimney pipe right up there in the peak of the roof? You can't see any smoke coming out, and yet there's a fire in there. That's really a key. Having a wood stove and using wood heat is becoming illegal in certain areas because some people let their fires be really smoky. So the key is split it small, burn it dry, burn it hot. Look at that fire burning. So the tree I just cut was white fir. In this fire I've also got some hardwood rounders, deciduous. Those coals will keep overnight. We have some depressions down in the ash there. When this fire is burned down to coals, we rake the coals down in the hollow of the ash, cover it over with more ash, and it will hold all night. So that's how to burn a fire responsibly with no smoke. And there's the chimney pipe going up to an adapter where it goes into an insulated chimney pipe. And if you have no smoke, you'll have no creosote and you'll have no chimney fires. Okay, so now I'm going to show you a little bit more about saws and cutting the firewood to length. You can see here by the little house more firewood, 8-foot lengths under sheet metal. Then in the wintertime, when I need some exercise, I drag the lengths out here onto the deck, and now my mom is going to hold the camera for me, and I will go ahead and cut off this block I've started. There you go. For a big, gnarly block, you might need a metal splitting wedge and a sledgehammer. And that's not very fun, and you should use ear protection if you have to do that. I think I'll be able to get this one without the splitting wedge. If I read it right, find where the splits and the knot holes already are, and go with the flow. There you have one chunk and another. And that's just about the right size for stove wood. It needs to be about that small in order to burn without smoke. Let me show you one more thing about saws. How to maintain, always keep your saw dry. And from time to time, in order to keep that saw curve, that channel in the wood wide enough, you may need to set the teeth of your saw by taking a pair of pliers, and every other tooth you bend up, down, so that the teeth face away from each other, kind of like that. And that helps them cut a nice wide saw curve that won't bind when this part of the saw slides back and forth. So, again, for a safe, responsible burn, split it small and burn it hot and burn it dry. And here, there's my 42-inch long crosscut saw that I can tackle the big trees with. So, enjoy and be safe. Thank you for listening. This is Bluebird Forest Garden.